Hey everybody. Now I've been sharing about the experiences I've had through going to the visionary state and how it eventually put me in contact with this guy Bill Lieb. And so up until this point I've shared quite a bit about that, and so the issue there is it's a twofold or whatever. It's like multifaceted. It's just not like one issue here. Like discovering the visionary state for me is super important. I think it's worth talking about and worth looking back on. But the part that gives me trouble is that it puts this person in the story, like, and that's where it becomes a challenge to me emotionally and all this stuff. And so that's where when I talk about it, I kind of get a little bit worked up just thinking about it, some of the stuff that has happened. And at the same time, there's this person that I sort of met through Bill like over 10 years ago through Facebook. And so I've been in touch with this person the whole time, but she acts like she doesn't really talk to him anymore. And then she sort of started getting under my skin. So I've been doing little things to what you call to get them to react and to expose them. And so that's kind of interesting because that's where I'm going at the moment. Is I decided, let's see, it was about 2005. So 2005 is a very important year. I think a lot of big stuff happened that year. And I decided, I really want to kind of get this stuff out of my system. Kind of one of my little jokes has been, there's something called the Billy curse. Like I can't get this person out of my head. And reason being is like all this stuff I've been talking about from 1982, when I first started having those visions that had to do with Bill Lieb and Rosie Clearlight. And then later on, it took a long time to make me want to write this guy. So what happened when I wrote him in 1998? So it took a lot of things to get me to do that. So that's where you have to have been paying attention. So I created a playlist called the JodyVision, and it has all this stuff. So just to kind of briefly touch on what's leading up to what I did next, okay? And so that's kind of a big here's why type of a story. So where first time I wrote to him, I was pretty hesitant. I mean, like I think the first time I really thought I should do that would probably be like 1993. So I was like 18 years old, and that's why I saved this picture. I'm just gonna flash this. I saved this picture. It was out of the magazine. The magazine was falling apart, and I just liked that picture, and I just had this really cool frame. So this is like a milestone in my story where, in 1993, I first thought of contacting him because I realized he's that person, that 1982. So her and her husband in 1982, Rosie Clearlight. I've done a number of videos. I call it I call it my leprechaun and my fairy godmother, because these people are just like characters out of a storybook in some ways. But Rosie was a close friend of mine. That's why I moved to Montana. She's the only person I can really talk to about all this stuff without getting yelled at, right? So anyways, that's the whole issue. So that's how it all comes full circle. Is, when I first wrote that letter in 98, I went to the show afterwards. I kind of think, Bill and his wife were aware of me, and she came up and she collected some information. She acted like she wanted to stay in touch. She acted like she liked me. But in hindsight, I think what she was doing is making sure I'm that same person. I think she figured out I'm that same person. And then years later, I found out there's another chick named Bree that was interested in Bill. But she was like like a pretty girl with club status, so she was able to try Kevin Key next. So, so people might remember Bree. So it gave me the impression, in hindsight, that it looked like, maybe his wife was coming after me because she, worried that Bill Lieb's interested in other ladies. So that's just my, my guess. That's why I've been saying stuff like that. It's like I'm just like trying to why did they do this to me? And so it's like I kind of got slapped with a few heavy labels that night, and it, and to me it was like, it was kind of like, you kind of instantly get accused of all these things. And so what it really is it's just how it's how people speak in the industry. So like if say a fan wants to go up and talk to the person, like the rock star or whatever, like if what people will do is try to help the rock star by getting rid of the fans. And the thing is though is they throw words around like psycho and stalker. Like you just want to go up and talk to somebody and you get called, pretty much a dangerous person, and then slapped with things like groupie and all this. And so like the very next year, these people in a van were chasing me out when I came out of the theater, and they're chasing me and they were going, there she is, there she is. I felt like they were punishing me. Like I got labeled all this stuff and then I got punished, like they're trying to humiliate me and all this. And so I was really pissed off, and so that's why, I had to explain, here's what led up to it and here's why it pisses me off. And it's not like just this one thing. There's like so many things that tie in, like with all the hopes and expectations I had out of just coming to Denver and finding my music scene, let alone meeting this person. So it kind of seems like, man, these people really suck, I mean, because, I just figure if the three of us had talked to each other and just communicated rather than be like, people kind of whisper in each other's ear and, this person's kind of like acting all aloof and stuff. So you're not really sure what's going on. So I always felt like Bill Lieb likes me a little bit. Like, it's not like, oh, I gotta stay in touch with Jody. But, sometimes you meet people, you kind of like them, you'll talk to them. But like, if somebody's constantly butting in and it creates a lot of stress, the best option is to just go someplace else so I can understand where, a lot of people are fighting for his attention and all that stuff. So like, in hindsight, like I have more clarity, but at the moment, I had no idea what was going on. I really thought it had to do with some of the people in the local club scene trying to screw me over and ruin my night. And so I had no idea. So that's what kind of bugs me, is the fact that it took a long time to really analyze it. And even then, I'm probably wrong about a lot of things, but point being is that was just a real bummer. And then after those things happened though, I got what I called the big reveal. That's when I time traveled, and then I came back from it, and then I started remembering all this stuff and all the information I was given. And so I was being told all along that this the visionary state, like so when I was hanging out with that guy Jason from Shaolin, I went to visionary state, and he told me what it was. Then Rosie calls me up in visionary state. She told me what it was. So I was getting an education on visionary state in visionary state. And so this is a really cool part of the lesson, is that it can happen and it's a real thing. And this is where I'm innocent. I didn't make this up. So you got to understand is that it's bestowed upon me and it wasn't my idea. So I feel like I'm really being tricked into it, but it's easy to trick me into this. And you can see why, it's like they picked the perfect person to trick me into this, right? So anyways, man, my hair's going right in my face, but I like it because it hides half my face. It's like, I just don't want people to see how bad I look, so I just try to cover half my face. At least I don't use makeup. Nah, you see, bitches. At any rate, this is definitely one of those things that make you have to do the shadow work and, come to terms with who you are and, what really makes me a bad person and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not really a bad person. I think, I'm just a friendly and naive person. I didn't realize this guy was so popular. I just seemed like, me and my dad are the only people in the world that listen to music like this. And okay, so I was meeting more people like that in Denver, but I didn't know he was that popular and had all this type of stuff going on. But anyways, let me see. What I was gonna say about that is when I realized it was all just visions and, this guy couldn't possibly be interested in me. And I've always thought that anyways. I never thought, I could expect him to really be interested in me. But I really wanted to let it go. And when I moved up to Greeley, though, I was looking on the internet and I kind of wanted to talk about it peacefully, but it couldn't go without people talking shit to me, because it does sound like a weird topic. So I understand that, like, really the biggest problem I might have is what you call talking about it to the wrong people, and then they're going to want to attack me for it. And so I let it make me mad, and then I said a lot of things out of anger. So and I got kicked off. But I was just really trying to think, to try to teach myself to understand that this is something I got to put behind me. But then I met this guy named Kyle at the Guitar Center, and I wasn't sure if it was by coincidence because his family lived in the area. Like he usually is in Chicago, and he had connections with the record business and participated on the making of poem, Delirium Poem, he said. And I kind of think, I made the connection with that. So So if I'm incorrect about him, so be it. But I was just a little concerned that maybe that somebody sent him in there to talk to me, but pretended that we met by accident, you know. And I felt like he could have put us in touch, and if he wanted to, but I didn't have a portfolio or a demo and all that. And then but then when I saw Bill Lieb in 2003, that's when I did the story on my timeline here called the what you call the compassion for a curly Q, because that's where I started using that term, you know, because I felt like when Bill let his hair grow out, he looked more like he did in my visions, you know. So I've seen some older pictures of Bill where his hair looks really light and kind of straight, you know. So in one of my visions, it did. He looked more like a 5-year-old, but his bangs were more closer to the eyebrows. But I've seen other pictures of Bill where his hair grows out; it gets a little curly. So there's been he's got this really interesting hair. Sometimes it looks really pin straight, sometimes it gets a little curly, and sometimes it's light, and sometimes it's dark, and sometimes he has it, and sometimes he just don't, you know. But at any rate, I always it's just something that you rarely ever see, you know, if you've ever been around, you know, as a fan, going to the shows and stuff like that. You don't see Bill with his hair grown out and curly, and so that year, when I saw him like that, it just made me feel like he is definitely Billy. So somehow, like, my hope was growing, like meeting that guy Kyle, seeing Bill with his hair like that, and I figured, you know, I found out that he was married and all that stuff, so I just felt like, you know, the visions have to be for something else. I was just trying to, like, find all these ways to just be like, you know, I have to put this behind me. But I think the next couple of years was kind of rough, and I got myself in some trouble, and I just spent like maybe a week in jail. But it was kind of like I felt like I was hitting rock bottom, and I was just, you know, telling myself I really need to start clearing out all the things that bother me, like deal with all of my psychological trash. And that's where I felt like I need to get Bill Lieb off my mind, because this is somebody I need to put behind me. And I just thought I would try to write a real nice letter to him. Now the timeline here is getting to be 2005. I would say I had been living in Boulder, and after I went to jail, I moved down to Denver, and I ended up staying with this girl named Desiree from the club scene. Now Desiree had this old piece of junk printer, and she let me borrow it or keep it. Anyways, I want to share this quickly. I was in touch with Rosie since 2002, so I finally got in touch with her, and so it's been a couple years we've been talking. And when she sent me this postcard of a Big Fork, and let's see, she lived kind of right over here above my finger. There's kind of a hill right here. This is where all the bears and lions and stuff live, and then they come right down here, and they have the audacity to just go pooping right in our yard. Right? So anyways, me and Rosie had been talking, and I was thinking about going up to Montana. But she was telling me I'd have to live outside in a trailer because her husband Howard doesn't really want somebody living inside the house. And I thought, well, I don't think that sounds like a very good option. So that's why, you know, when he died in 2008, the very next summer, 2009, I did come up here. There's no way I was going to live out in that yucky little trailer. Okay, yeah, that would have been a bad idea, so I'm glad I didn't go. At any rate, me and Rose used to talk about end times, you know. I felt like if I went up there to live with her, part of what I would get is help with that issue. Like, I've heard of the end times thing a few times. She's the one that recommended reading the Urantia and Pleiadian Agenda and stuff like that. She has quite a bit of books on theology that I've inherited. But so the difference between Bill Lieb and Rosie, so they don't know each other, but I became real close friends with Rosie. With Bill Lieb, it's just been more like I go to his concerts and we're acquainted with each other for that reason. So other than that, you can't say, you know, that, you know, he's a close friend of mine or anything. But, you know, I've always stated that, like, it could be a good option. Like, I feel like I'd be willing to make a commitment to him as a friend easily. Just, I mean, who wouldn't? He's a great guy, right? He's a really likable guy. So, you know, I think most people would probably accept that, you know, that same thing. At any rate, back to my story about that 2005, you know, I mean, I was just thinking I just really need to clear this out, and I want to really be nice and straightforward and just, you know, say how just I didn't really want it to be a crazy letter, but just like, I have these crazy experiences and this is all it was. So I can understand, you guys thinking it's crazy. I don't think psychotic is fair, but like, but I kind of felt like that was like, instead of getting a reply from Bill Lee, it was more like I got the reply from Carol Ann. Like he acted like he would have talked to me if it wasn't for other people trying to butt in and creating stress. But then I realized, this is all Carol Ann's doing. So, she was the one that was pretty much replying to the letter, like, get away from my husband, you crazy bitch. So, I mean, I can understand, her trying to, like, help protect him and try to keep people away from him. I mean, that's what you should do, so there's nothing wrong with that. So, I didn't really resent her quite so much at the time. For that matter, it was understandable. So, but then, so I kind of had that in mind, but, so I was, let me see, I sat down to write this letter. Now, the funny thing about this computer is you write on it for a little bit, but then it starts to go haywire, right? So what you have to do is write a little bit and save it, write a little bit and save it. And, I still have the paper. I have a stack of that paper. It's really pretty stuff. So let me do this. I'll show you in a better light because this is important. That I just went down to the office supply store, and when I went in there, I really liked it. So I thought that was just a nice stack of paper I could use to write my letter on. So I wanted to be nice and intelligent and just, logical and just, be honest and tell what happened to me and what brought me to Bill. Because I thought it was still interesting, like, even if it's not somebody who should get involved with me, even if it's somebody that will only ever remain just a pen pal to me, it don't matter, it's like, it's okay, like, I can't expect any of this stuff, that is being bestowed upon me. So so the way the narrative went, anyways, was that, in 1982, when my parents took me over to their friends Rosie and Howard, they had that little kid named Billy, and they were telling me how he's Billy but Frontline Assembly. And the part that makes it so embarrassing is someday we're going to grow up and be married and playing in a band. So if you saw that Billie Jean parody I did, I was just trying to lace in some of the narrative and all the stuff from my stories, So anyways, but he was never, in reality, somebody who I connected with, right? So, but it's interesting just because when you look at the visionary state and how it works, is it was so realistic. I had no idea I was going to visionary state, but then I got older and I read about it, and so you could go to visionary state and not even know it. You really have to figure it out later, and that's where it was like an 18-year process of going into visionary state without knowing it. And that's when in 2000 it was revealed to me what had been going on all along. So that's where I'm like, oh, okay. So I thought I didn't have that piece of information yet, and so I couldn't wait to share it, so I think that's really interesting because part of what I was told in the visionary state is this is going to happen, and well, some of it comes true, but I was warned that some of it's true and some of it's not true. So anyways, some of it does come true. Like, I was told I was going to time travel before I did it, and so I was told I could time travel again to see what they call Armageddon, and so this was never really a big topic of mine. This is also something that's kind of being bestowed upon me to think about all this sort of end timesy stuff. Otherwise, I just not that interested. I just think it's a lot of fear-based thinking that people don't really need, but it could just be something that's in our psyche and something that's always being put in front of us. Like, we're always wondering when World War III is finally going to happen, because it's not if, but when, right? When that's going to happen. It's kind of like when the dam breaks, not if, but when. When the dam breaks. What will happen next, see? Anyways, dealing with the subject of going to visionary state, I just thought maybe I should enlighten Bill on this. It would make me feel good to know that he understands it, right? That he thinks, because I kind of think he could handle this, like, because the biggest mistake is going to the wrong people. They say one should not cast pearls before swine. So, not to put everyone down, but you're like throwing some of your most precious gems. To me, this is some of the most exciting things I've had to see in my life. And I want to share this, like, oh, you should see what I've been through But then you get all these people like, yeah, but Jody, you just sound like a crazy weirdo. So like, okay, I get that. I know it sounds crazy. I just thought I was hanging around people that are crazy enough to enjoy this. But it's not really crazy. It's just, I think it's really different. And the only thing that makes it crazy is taking your chances, sharing something with somebody that's going to make you look bad, right? So that's what makes it crazy, is that I've gone and like talked about it. And then as a consequence, I've had to listen to a lot of people say hurtful things to me about how crazy I sound. So I should accept that and just, hey, that's just part of, doing that. So, but that's fine. But anyways, this time, so I was writing this letter, and I was fighting the computer the whole way. It was a really hard job writing the letter. The computer kept shutting down, and I'd have to do it over and over. So I think it was going to be a good letter. But then I went to the record store, and I bought this record. I'll show it to you here quickly. This is Noise Unit Voyeur, and when I bought this record, that's when I thought, this lady has got to be the girlfriend. So let me show you this here. Especially when you open it up and you see the things with the lady's butt on it, right? So, oh, I'm sorry. Looks like I'm playing with it. But notice how they made sure it was like off center, so that you're not missing anything. And then, of course, most importantly, I didn't prepare to do this. I just felt like when I saw this stuff, I'm like, I really hated this model, like right off the bat. Like, it's almost like there's two things that went through my mind is, so, part of the vision, so I shared, I tried to share what I could remember with Bill about the visions, and one of those things was back in 98, I must have been in Visionary State, and I had this big magazine called Goldmine, and there was an article about Skinny Puppy, and it sort of went off on a tangent about Bill Lieb for a minute, and it was just interesting because it sounded like the quote that Rosie had made back in 1982, because here she's telling me she's like a freelance writer, and sometimes she writes about music, and I'm reading this quote, and it's like, his name is Baldus Van Vieren, but we call him Billy, and just some of the stuff that they said back then, and that's where, like, I got tricked into thinking there were some people upstairs named Baldus Van Vieren, so it's really hilarious, and I did a whole story. I think that's the one I called Billy Bald Ass, because it's just a play on words or something. And so that's where I think the spirits that give me these visions have kind of a twisted sense of humor. So the whole thing with this is it's like a real slap in the face. It's almost like having somebody beckon you, and like you're going to this open door, but then they slam it really hard and it practically breaks your nose, so it's like that. It's like, come on, Jody, you should write to Bill Lieb and then try to make me think he lives in my building. So I looked really crazy. And so maybe psycho could be short for psychosis. Maybe I'm experiencing psychosis, if not the visions are causing me to get like that. Because you get really confused when you're feeling threatened and confused. It could turn into you like guessing that a lot of things are happening that are not happening. So that could be the case at this point where I call it a crazy making experience. I was just really confused. And damn near, running the risk of what you call getting institutionalized. I don't want that to happen, right? Damn near, huh? And that's where, I've looked into all kinds of things. It's caused me to have to do my research that there are such a thing as targeted individuals where they're using controlled experiments to see if they could take people and do a number of things. Like, they'll even go as far as to like spray stuff on your so this sounds super paranoid, but these are the kind of things you read about later. Like, so I would never have thought of this stuff, but this was also bestowed upon me in the Visionary State. People told me there are programs like this, and later on there are programs like this, but they're really not that good, and that's why a targeted individual usually knows, and they do a pretty crude job of it. But yeah, so it's left me for years trying to sort out what happened to me because it's so goddamn embarrassing. And then I see this album, and I thought, this has got to be his new girlfriend. Like, it was all intuitive. Like, I just thought, this has got to be his new girlfriend. And the article said that he would divorce his wife to be involved with a very young girl. And I guess when I read that, I was hoping I was the young girl. But I think this was the young girl. And so when I saw it, I just thought, if I send this letter, kind of like the wife probably saw my letter, that's why she went after me in 98. And so I was afraid this girl was gonna come after me too. I just had that vibe about her. Like I could just tell she's probably gonna come after me if I send this letter to Bill. So I kind of started changing my tune a little bit. And so I tried to tell him, it did push me to the point to fall in love and look forward to it and all that stuff. But just for fun, I think I might have said a few things like if he had a girlfriend read my letter, maybe it would trigger them and make them, feel like they have to respond to me. So I kind of wanted to make her respond if she was going to read it. So it's kind of like some of the stuff I was doing here, like just kind of throwing stuff out there that, so I'm really kind of teasing these guys. Like I really don't mean to hurt their feelings, because particularly Bill, like I don't want to hurt his feelings, but I have to tease them a little bit because I felt like I've been teased quite a bit and I've been put down quite a bit too. And that's what I'm trying to say is, like, you guys have to watch what you're saying. I know, like, it's cool to walk around using words like psycho and all this stuff, like everyone does it. But when you're doing that in front of people, you're really putting them down, and they don't really deserve it, because they could just be somebody that's a friendly and helpful person, and they don't realize, where you're coming from at the moment. Like, I was pretty young and I haven't been around very long, when this all got started, and so that's where I just really wanted to defend that and eventually communicate all that. That maybe that's the folly of people that are in the industry. Like they just throw words around that very loosely and they don't realize that, so it's dehumanizing, because then it's like you don't really care about those people's feelings. So it's like somewhat of a narcissistic mindset to like not care about other people. This diminishment and stuff like this, see? And so you don't want to like, if you want to keep fans to at least have good terms with you, don't let your crew members and people in your environment use that language, that type of thing. So this is good advice for anybody who's still out there in the music industry, no matter how you play a role. So at any rate, because it could lead to all this misunderstanding and hurt feelings. And in my case, there were a lot of things going on at the same time, so it wasn't just that's like the tip of the iceberg. But then you got all the visionary stuff, and that's where, like, I wouldn't even be talking about this, it'd be like old hat. I would have, like, if I would have met Bill Lieb and didn't get to talk to him, I would have just like, I probably wouldn't even think about him anymore. But the visionary state thing was super interesting. And in order to talk about the visionary state, I had to talk about Bill Lieb, because he was bestowed upon me in that way. So that's where, it gets tricky, and that's where people, my side too. So like, you get these people trying to help Bill Lieb out by, attacking me. They think they're trying to help save his life by attacking me and pissing me off. And then you get people on my side who are like, Jody, so my friends are kind of disgusted and they don't want me to talk about this either. But Rosie allowed it. She understood what I was talking about, and she was trying to help me come to terms. But she wasn't really able to help me finish coming to terms. But she did give me the freedom to be myself and not, she never gave me, she never shamed me for it. Or, she didn't want me to be ashamed of it. She would just sort of like let me be myself and do my thing. So anyways, what happened though, like seeing that picture and making all these assumptions, I changed the tune of that letter, and I wrote it in such a way that it had some flirtatious type of language, hopefully, to trigger her. And it's interesting because it worked. And so after I moved to Big Fork in 2009, I didn't get on the internet very much until like spring of 2010. And that's where we came together. This is all going to come full circle. And that's where the story gets interesting. Like, so I don't really want this to be, a way of spreading drama. But there was just some really interesting events that come with writing this letter and making these connections. Because after I wrote the letter, I had a dream about Bill Lieb where... I'm trying to think. So maybe a few months after this letter was sent. So what I did is I tried to disguise it by writing, because I was thinking about coming up here to live with Rosie and Howard Clearlight. So I tried to disguise the letter by calling it Clearlight Music, by the way, because I just really wanted to get past these other people. I just felt like, if I write Bill, I really don't have any privacy. He's going to share it with somebody. And so this has been kind of my pattern, I feel like, from the 1998 to this moment. And then in other occasions, I feel like if I write to him, like, he's just nice and stuff. Like, he never says anything mean. But then whoever else he lets read the letter, like, they'll say all the mean stuff. So I'm not sure if it's just coming from them or if they're just repeating what Bill says. So that kind of made me mad at Bill, because I feel like he'll say something to them different than what he's saying to me, and it's not what I like, So something that makes me mad. And this girl just seemed like she did a lot of things that I don't think are cool, and that and to bring it up, would be upsetting to talk about it. But point being, it's interesting because I dreamt about her in 2005, and let's see how the dream went. Oh, okay, here we go. So first it started out at this gas station. I felt like I was in this gas station down on South Broadway, down where I went to see their show eventually. And there was this big guy. He was kind of dark hair with a mustache, and he had on like a t-shirt with a collar with the color polo. So I thought maybe he was the guy that worked at the gas station by the way he was dressed. And all I remember was just like he wanted to fight me, and I tried to turn away. But then when I looked back, he was on the floor bleeding. And I felt like, oh shit, I got to get out of here, because, I didn't want to be held accountable. So, no, wait a minute. There was also something to do with me and Bill Leap walking down the sidewalk. I think he and I were walking down the sidewalk, and he said something like, "Jody, I'm old." I don't know, and he just like, I looked over at him, and he looked like a really old man, but he had like, just for fun, I'll share the detail that there seemed to be some kind of like foreign language, like his skin looked like a screen, and all these symbols were like appearing. So first, Bill Lee seemed like he was being really stern with me, like maybe he was trying to give me excuses why I shouldn't bother him, or why I shouldn't be interested in him, and that was like one of the things that he was telling me, and that he's too old or something. And then that's when I saw the guy in the gas station. Then I was running, and it seemed like when I was running, it seemed like, so I was in Denver, and it seemed like I was running west, and maybe I was kind of skipping over the land, because it was like nighttime. It was really kind of interesting, like you could see the moonlight on the mountains and everything, but it all went by really fast. And next thing you know, it seemed like I was hanging a right and going up the street, and just like maybe the first house on my right was this like a townhouse. Well, this townhouse was in front of me. It seemed kind of tall and kind of had these bay windows like this. The steps seemed to be about a good half a story. And all of a sudden, it's like I went around to the side and up and through it like this. And when I went around to the side, it looked like I was inside of a convenience store for a moment, or a grocery store. And then all of a sudden, it just seemed like it whizzed past me. And next thing you know, I was just sitting on the floor. And behind me was the bay windows. And in front of me seemed to be like the corner with the bed in it. And so I'm kind of thinking, this is the wall in front of me where the door to the bedroom is, and then there's a bed going this way. And all of a sudden I'm just sitting up and I'm looking around, like I found myself there. And then I stand up to get up to leave or do something, and I realize this is Bill Leib's house, and there was this woman, and I didn't know who she was, but she had like brown wavy hair and glasses, and she was pregnant. And then, and Bill's like, "Come on, let's go." And so we left, and then we went outside, and we were inside. We got in a white van, and that's all I remember. I think we got in a white van, and that's all I remember. So I just thought it was a vivid dream. It's one of those things that sounds like, it's not that important, but the interesting thing about it was, so in 2007, when we went to see Frontline Assembly, there was the guy, the big guy with the dark hair and the mustache, and he had on a shirt like the dream, but it was red and white stripes. And so in the mosh pit, he was kind of bullying people around. So he was in front of me. He was just like this. He was in front of me all of a sudden, and all I did was I put my hands up, and I went like that. And it looks a little bit what one we call grass the sparrow's tail, it's kind of part of a four-set. And it just came out of nowhere. Like, I didn't even know what I was doing. I just brought my hands up. I went like that. The guy turned around, and he was sitting at my feet, which would have been perfect if I was trying to kick his ass. But, I was just being playful. And as I stepped away from him, I pointed and I laughed, and I said, "Aha, that's what you get." And so apparently some other people laughed at this guy too. But then he came up and he hit me back here. He kind of took his knuckles and hit me. And I just figured it was a regular accident, because sometimes in the mosh pit, when people are off balance, they kind of throw their hands out, or they accidentally hit you with their elbows. And I've hit myself in the head with these trying different things. I've hit myself in the head with these, and it was almost like getting hit in the head by one of my nunchucks. It hurt pretty well, and so I walked off to like rub it out. I was kind of thinking I should go to the bartender and get some ice or something, but I'm really forgiving. You know, I do kung fu, and I just figured it was an accident. But somebody came out to me and said they saw it happen, and they think it was intentional, and they offered to do something about it. And I said, no, don't do anything about it. It was just an accident. He goes, no, I saw it. But I think they threw him down and gave him a bloody nose, because this is where it ties in with the dream. Is like, I didn't want to fight with him, but he turned out to be on the floor bleeding. So I think they just gave him a bloody nose. And then the white van, well, me and my friend Chris went to the show in a white van, just like the one in the dream. So, I actually got to take his guitar player, Jared, to the club, and then we gave Jeremy a ride home, because I was trying to visit with them and talk to him a little bit, and Bill was tied up with this chick named Jeannie, so I felt like I couldn't really talk to him, but I really wanted to try to talk to Jeremy, because I think I had a premonition about something to do with Jeremy, and I thought I should give him a try just to see if I could talk to him if he was an approachable person. And I always liked Jeremy, and I'm really glad I met him, you know, because that would have been the last time we got a chance to meet each other. So anyways, let me see. So I'm going to talk about the show a little bit later and probably touch on the same points. And but then later on, in 2011, I had been introduced to this girl, Teresa, and she seemed like she was mad at Bill. And she showed me where he lived on Google Maps. Now, something I'm going to talk about is how some of these people give me information, like, you know, this girl Amelia, she's the one, she gave me Bill's number to kind of give me bait, you know, kind of bait me in, but then fight me off. And so I kind of feel like what these guys are doing is they're throwing bait at me like this to see what I'll do, and if I take it, then they're like, aha, that's what I thought, you know. And then Teresa did something similar. I don't know if this is the same reason, but like, so, you know, I took a look at it, and it's like, dude, that's the house I dreamed about, you know. So it was just like the one I dreamed about, and it was right next to that convenience store. So that's why my dream, I went through the side of the house and I saw a flash of that store, and so it had the bay window and everything. So they don't live there anymore. I think they sold the house. Thank God. It was an ugly house too, by the way, you guys. Anyways, so people give me information. That's the weird thing, is like, this is something I was trying to put behind me by moving to Montana, but you know, I was really tempted to go on Facebook, and first thing I did was I tried to find Bill Lieb. And because of this one woman, Amelia, that I'm showing you here, it kind of put me in touch with a number of people that just didn't like how she was, and so that's where, you know, I get some of the information that I may, you know, like either I remember what people have told me or I've misconstrued it. I apologize if I'm not correct, but you know, when I tell stuff like this, it's like, this has been my experience. This is how I remember it. And these are some of the things I remember from my visions. These are some of the things I remember from people talking to me. And so it's really interesting how in 2005, after I wrote this big purple letter, I had this dream that I pretty much went to Bill's house and saw the woman on that album, Amelia. And before I went to Montana, I was told a couple different times that this woman named Amelia Bentley is going to put me in touch with Bill Lieb. So when we came in contact on Facebook, I honestly thought she was trying to help us get in touch, like in a backwards way. And so I kind of took the bait real nice and easy. And then of course the wife, you know, she was the person trying to protect Bill from me, ended up spilling the beans on a number of things that I thought was contributing quite a bit to my insight. So that stuff, like, I'm not really sure if I should get into that stuff, but it's just really interesting how I've been trying to walk away from this, but when I wrote the letter, halfway through it, I decided it would be kind of fun to see if I could get the girlfriend to react if she's like that type of person, and she definitely reacted. And then but then the dream stuff, so like usually it's vision, so this is interesting. It's just more of a dream, and that's where I think so I've talked about remote viewing and other visions, like I saw 9/11 the day it happened, for example, and it was pretty accurate. And so going to Bill's house and then being able to see it later, I really appreciate the enlightenment, but at the same time, it's like, I felt like, what are they trying to test me to see if I'm gonna, what they're gonna like put cameras and see if I show up on Bill's back porch looking through his window. Maybe he likes to cook in his underwear, you know, or some shit. So I was wondering, you know, what this lady Therese is up to, because it's like she's done stuff like this. And she'll talk about Bill like, oh, you don't want nothing to do with him. He's a jerk. But then like, so when I was talking about this stuff on my Facebook page, she kept kind of like getting on my case, like, you better watch what you say or else, you know. And so she starts coming to his defense. She's been doing all this work to convince me he's not worth talking to because he's a jerk. But then she's starting to threaten me, and it's almost like she was his mouthpiece, you know. So that's why I was trying to expose it and blow it up. And so I ended up having to block her. Like, I just realized she's not my friend. She's like a snake in the grass, you know. So, you know, I've been having to deal with a lot of different people. Like, you know, if Bill Lieb has just been like impartial and just by trying to be nice, then all these other people have made things worse by what you call trying to help them. And that's where like Amelia, if she was trying to help Bill Lieb, she has no idea how much she kind of did the opposite. She actually made things a lot worse, you know. But point being is because I'm able to experience some sort of some level of remote viewing, like being able to see the house there, and the girl was pregnant. And so I heard later on, you know, that she was claiming to be pregnant, although Bill Lieb, there's no way he could have got this woman pregnant, you know. So that's why it's interesting, because like, so let me see, 2005, so 2011 is when people would reveal to me the house and this lady claiming to be pregnant. So whether she was or not is interesting, that I saw it in the vision. So the vision, or not the vision, but the dream could be confirmation that she was in fact pregnant. Now she herself says she was pregnant, but other people think that she lied about it. So it's one of those things where, you know, when things are true or not in my visions, you know. So it's a matter like what's in our psyche to begin with, you know. So that could also create a false sense of truth. Like maybe if she had been lying about being pregnant, the idea was still out there even if it wasn't true, and stuff like that. So just, you know, maybe that's not the best explanation for that, but point being is I just think it was interesting that I had dreamt one about the guy from the mosh pit that hit me. Now I remember this guy back in '98 when we were trying to meet Bill after the show. He was in the alley yelling at me and my friend Chris like, see you later, groupies. And then later on, apparently Bill Lee was in town, like, and I'm checking, he must have brought his wife, because I seen her out there talking to that same dude, and he was like cussing me out and calling me names. And so I really think it's that same dude, and that's why I was saying, you know, I just feel like, you know, people have to be careful what they say. Like this person really thought he had felt self-entitled to, you know, what you call, you know, yell at me, insult me, and possibly was even the guy that punched me in the head. Thankfully it was in a non-vital area, because if it was my nose, it definitely would have broke my nose. So no, you know, so it's water under the bridge, but it's when you put it in perspective and how like, you know, I kind of think I'm innocent, you know, I wasn't really doing anything wrong, or let's say I was just trying to be nice, and I got all these things labeled on me. Certain people had tried to punish me for this, and then you have the guy in the mosh pit was actually trying to punch me in the head, so I had dreamed about him. And I don't know, so I just really wanted to mention that the reason I talk about this is I personally think it's interesting, but again, I think it's a twofold issue, because I really want to like explore the visionary state experience and everything that I've experienced with it, but at the same time, it has bestowed the situation upon me that entails coming in contact with Bill Lieb and coming in contact with this woman. And just when I thought I was trying to walk away, I ended up in a scenario where like a lot of people were dumping information on me that I would have to like process and understand that a lot of these people really just want to, what you call, encourage me to keep away from Bill. And it seems, in my opinion, to be in their best interest, because they would like to be involved with him. And so by, you know, it's kind of like, you know, like how there are certain kind of breeds of birds that will knock their siblings out of the nest, so to speak, you know. So that's why it's always been hard to distinguish, you know, like if Bill would be interested in knowing me or not, because I know he's got a lot of, I'm sure there's like, you know, 500,000 people that would all like to be Bill's new friend, right? But to be, you know, because he's, you know, maybe, you know, he, like, I kind of feel like I like everybody I meet, you know, until they start fucking with me. So I just feel like I have a sense of agape. So, you know, it could just be that, you know, or maybe on some level he does appreciate that, you know, sometimes I'm right about things, sometimes I'm actually funny, and maybe I'm likable beyond just the general sense. But But if people think he likes me, man, they're gonna be jealous. So like he wouldn't want to tell anybody if he did. Or or then you have these people that, they just want to do anything they can. So like if I put something out there they can use against me, they're like, I got this. I'm gonna use this. Now the point being about this purple letter is later on, after fighting with Bill's girlfriend, she used it as ammunition. So I was really upset that she was able to have my letter. And then she posted it on the internet and shared it with all her friends, because she was trying to prove that I'm crazy, the whole way, and that all her friends agree. So anyways, that's where things took a turn for the worst, was meeting Amelia and having her, put my letter on the internet. And at that point I realized I just have to be, I think she made me realize it doesn't matter what I write. If I write something to Bill in private, I might as well just post it on goddamn Facebook. I might as well just put it in a, have a plane in the sky, like if I want to write Bill a message and like just send it to him like in private, like it's the same thing as if I like posted it on Facebook, because that's where it's going to end up if the wrong person gets it, or, he's going to pass it around to his friends and they're all going to laugh at me or whatever. And then, so I might as well just hire one of those pilots to write my messages in the sky for the whole damn world to see. So that's kind of why I resorted to, saying some things like that. But so that's where, I don't want to get too carried away and caught up in the emotional tie to that, because like that's what I was kind of afraid of. And that's why I've kind of taken baby steps on going through this narrative and explaining what's been happening to me. But anyways, that's really a big topic and a big milestone in my story. And so I wanted to make sure I hit all the points. But, I can still add on in my next few videos as I share out this timeline and some of these experiences. But, I do have a lot of respect, and I do really, like for Bill Lieb, like I really don't want to do things just to be, rude, but like, it's because, like the way people attack me, it makes it look like they're saying what he thinks. And so I feel like he agrees with what they think. And so it looks like he's kind of on their side and all that stuff. And it's like, it just makes me mad because I just don't really like the way those people think. And I think they're small-minded and judgmental. And it would really break my heart if he was just as small-minded and judgmental as they are. But, he doesn't have a single friend who would condone ever keeping in touch. So none of his friends are going to give me permission to have a friendship there if it was possible. And I say if it was possible. But at the same time, none of my friends want to give me permission either, other than Rosie Posey, who died. And so nobody really wants to give us permission to be friends, So it's kind of funny. That's what makes it complicated to distinguish what potential or reality there is. So anyways, I didn't want to go too long about that, but I still have to work this out and process this and still, have to finish my story. So I try to do this and try to be real nice. And remember that just due to the circumstances, I probably would have forgot about this guy a long time ago, but as a consequence of coming in contact with Bill Lieb and even though it's been a minimal amount of contact, it's sort of like sometimes you meet somebody, you like them, sometimes you meet somebody, you love them. And that's kind of how it was with Rosie. When she met me, she knew she loves me, which isn't necessarily romantic, but it did lead up to having a good close friendship and all this good stuff. So he's one of those people where I felt like I meet him and I know I like him, and so he could potentially have a similar friendship like that if he was interested. So that's where I've always wanted to make sure we're not just being interrupted, like make sure he's not just being, like there's like a false boundary because of the other people, where we would have easily made friends if it wasn't for the other people, so I've just had to try it and figure it out just to be sure, and it's been really difficult. Anyways, let me get off of this here because I got to get ready and go to work, because I'm kind of like a rock star in my job, and I have to have lots of energy to make people smile, and I can't go to work pissed off or exhausted. So you guys take care. I'll talk to you soon.